Welcome back to CasiornThinks. For the last 9 episodes, we've pretty much treated AI as an instrument. A tool you pick up to get a job done. But today, we are witnessing a huge shift from AI as an instrument to AI as an institution. We're exploring a project called ChatDev. Now, on the surface, it looks like a cute, pixelated 90s video game. But under the hood, it is the first working prototype of a post-human corporation. Today, we're handing out job titles to the algorithms. We'll see how a society of mind allows AI agents to fix their own code through something called Communicative Dehallucination, how one user built a stock market tracker for just 6 cents, and why the future of work isn't about writing code, it's about tending a digital ant colony. Class is in session! So when you first lay eyes on ChatDev, you're probably thinking, okay, is this some lost level from Earthbound? With these little pixel art guys running around a digital office. But here's the twist. This is no game. What you're actually looking at is a fully functioning virtual software company. And yup, it's powered completely by AI. Right, so let's get into what's really happening here. We're not just looking at a 90s video game. Under the hood, this thing is running on a concept called a society of mind. Now, what does that mean? Well, instead of relying on one single giant AI to do everything, ChatDev breaks the problem down. It creates a whole team of smaller, specialized AIs that all work together. And this isn't just a gimmick. Research from big players like Google Brain and Stanford is showing that when you get multiple AI agents to collaborate, they can reason and, get this, self-correct way better than a single AI could on its own.
The best way to wrap your head around this is to think of an ant nest. A single ant. It's pretty simple, right? It just follows a few basic rules. But when you get thousands of them together, that's when the magic happens. They build these incredibly complex structures, they solve really tough problems. The whole colony is way smarter than any individual ant. And that's exactly the principle ChatDev is running on, just with AI.
So how does this whole virtual company actually work? Well, the system basically hands out job titles to different AI agents. You've got your CEO who's making the big decisions. You've got a CTO managing all the tech. Then you have the programmers, the ones actually writing the code, and of course the testers who are hunting for bugs. It's set up just like a real company. Each AI agent gets a prompt. That's basically its job description. Something like, okay, you are a programmer. Your one and only job is to write clean, efficient code. Go.
Okay, but let's be real. If you just threw a bunch of AIs into a digital room and said, go build software, you'd get total chaos, right? A digital mob. So how do you keep them from descending into chaos? How do you actually get them to work together like a real team? This right here is where things get really clever. The secret sauce is a system called ChatChain. The best way to think about it is like the company's official handbook. It's a set of rules, a protocol that lays out the entire workflow. It dictates who does what and when. It makes sure all the communication is structured and orderly, so you don't have the programmer agent suddenly trying to do the CEO's job. Everybody stays in their lane and focuses on their specific task. So, ChatChain enforces a process that's kind of like a software development relay race. It all starts with the CEO and CTO figuring out what the user wants. Then they pass the baton to the next agent, who picks the right programming language. From there, it goes to the coders, who then pass it to the testers. And finally, it lands with the documentation team. The key thing here is that each step has to be totally finished before the next one can even begin. It creates the superstructured, predictable path from the initial idea all the way to the final product. Okay, but here's the million-dollar question, right? We all know that AI models they can hallucinate. They can just make stuff up with total confidence, or write code that looks perfectly fine but is secretly completely broken. And in a software project, just one of those little mistakes can bring the whole house of cards down. So what's the safety net here? And this is where it gets really cool. The system has a built-in process called, and this is a great name, Communicative Dehallucination. So the programmer agent doesn't just write some code and throw it over the wall. No way. A reviewer agent steps in and checks the work for bugs. If it finds a mistake, it sends it right back to the programmer with notes. They go back and forth like a real code review until the code is correct or they hit a limit on revisions. It's basically an automated quality control system built right into the company's workflow. Okay, so we've got the corporate structure, we've got the quality control, but something else happens when you get all these AIs working together, something fascinating. The system starts to develop what we call emergent properties. These are unexpected superpowers, basically abilities that a single AI working all by itself just wouldn't have. In fact, research has uncovered something called a collaborative scaling law. Now, we already know that with a single AI model, making it bigger, adding more parameters, usually makes it smarter. Well, it turns out the same idea applies here, but with agents. Adding more agents to a system like ChatDev actually makes the final product better. The collective intelligence of the group literally grows as you add more members to the team. It's just like our ant colony. More ants equals a smarter colony.
And get this kind of power is becoming ridiculously cheap. See this number? $0.06. 6 cents. That's how much it costs one user to get ChatDev to build a fully functional stock market sentiment tracker. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Creating custom software to analyze financial data for less than the price of a piece of gum.
And this isn't just for coding wizards either. The person who built that 6-cent tracker, a Reddit user, said they were a total novice. They tried to get a single super powerful AI like GPT-4 to write the code, but it just couldn't do it. It would get lost in the complexity. But the society of agents in ChatDev, they handled it. It was almost like having a team of human developers. This is a huge deal. It's empowering people who don't have a deep coding background to build some really powerful stuff.
All right, now it's super easy to get carried away here. I get it. But let's pump the brakes for a second and be what I like to call sober optimists. The core idea behind ChatDev is, frankly, revolutionary. But the actual stuff it produces right now, it's still very much a prototype. So to really get the full picture, we've got to talk about the glitches in the matrix, the flaws. Okay, so here's the ugly reality. First off, there's what you could call the high school ceiling. ChatDev is awesome at building simple things, like a game of tic-tac-toe. But when you ask it to build complex, professional-grade software, it tends to struggle. Second, that super rigid step-by-step process we talked about, the relay race, well, that can also be a weakness. Real-world software development is messy. It's more like a jazz ensemble, where people improvise, not a rigid relay. And yeah, there are some pretty funny bugs, like lazy agents, and some folks have reported that the user interface can be a little glitchy on their systems.
And here's a perfect and kind of hilarious example of that lazy agent bug. Sometimes, right in the middle of writing a piece of code, an agent will just stop. It literally leaves a comment for itself that says something like #add logic here, instead of, actually adding the logic. It's funny, for sure, but it's also a pretty stark reminder that this technology is not on full autopilot just yet. It still needs a human supervisor.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway for us? What does this all mean? Well, it points to a really fundamental shift in how we're going to work with AI in the future. We're moving past the era of just trying to write the perfect magical prompt. We're moving towards something much more like management. Look, the most important thing to remember about ChatDev isn't the simple little games it can build today. That's not the point. The real breakthrough here is the architecture. This is the blueprint. This is the proof of concept for a whole new way of working, a way of orchestrating an entire digital workforce. The apps it makes now are temporary, but that blueprint, that's the part that could change everything. And this really sums up the whole shift right here. In the past, the human's job was to be the master prompter, trying to find the exact right words to get a single AI to do what you want. But the future is about being the master orchestrator. Your job won't be to prompt. It'll be to design and manage entire systems of AIs, all working together on a common goal.
And this raises some absolutely huge questions for the future of work. Think about it. Who's going to design the org chart for these AI teams? Who's going to be the one to audit the agents and make sure they're not being lazy? Who makes the final call on when a project is good enough to ship? These aren't engineering questions anymore. These are management questions.
And you can bet that the people who figure out how to answer those questions are going to be incredibly valuable. If you want to stay on top of this totally fascinating, fast-moving future, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe to CasiornThinks right here on YouTube, look us up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, give us a follow on X and Facebook, and definitely check out the deep dives we post on our blog. And you're not going to want to miss our next episode. Stick around because we're going to dive into what happens when AI agents learn how to lie, how to deceive, and even how to form secret alliances. That's right, we're talking about AIs playing the classic party game Mafia, and trust me, it is so much more than just a game. So I'll leave you with this final thought. ChatDev really suggests that the most powerful form of AI isn't going to be a single monolithic model, but a well-managed team. It gives every single one of us the potential to be the manager of our very own digital ant farm. So, my question for you is, if you had one, what's the very first problem you would set it to solve? Drop your ideas in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in.